So boys, I got a request on how I find my daily bias, and so I'm gonna be sort of making a video about that. I don't really necessarily look for a daily bias. I more just look for draws on liquidity for the session that I'm trading. I usually trade the New York AM session, so I mainly just try and figure out the draw on liquidity for that session, not really the entire day, because it is obviously you should not try and figure out where the daily candle is going to go, but it doesn't really affect me a whole lot when I'm trading like on the 1 minute. It's not really that important where the entire daily expansion is going to go. So it's important to be able to try and see where the manipulation of that daily candle is. And there's an indicator which is really good. This one here, and that just sort of shows you like in live time the daily candle next to your chart, so you can see when. I mean, this is a terrible example because this is the Asian session right now, so there's not really anything to actually look at here, but you can see the daily candle and you can see the manipulation leg really easily on that. So anyway, the way that I sort of frame my bias for the session is the first thing I do every time is I mark out the previous day's highs and the previous day's lows. So I've got them marked out here and I've got them marked out down here. Also, I took a dub yesterday, first trade on the funded account, which was sick. I'll show you that. I've deleted I shorted this. I must stop above these highs. I was targeting the data lows, but I actually took out my full position at about halfway. So yeah, that was nice getting a win on the first trade of the account. But anyway, that's besides the point. The way that I figure out my daily bias, first thing I do is I mark out the previous day's highs and the previous day's lows. I also mark out the current day high and the current day low, and sometimes the previous weekly low and the previous weekly high as well. But that's a very high time frame sort of thing. I'm looking at mainly the current session, and what I've noticed is that the New York AM session almost always takes out the previous day's high or the previous day's low within that sort of 8:30 to 11 o'clock time. It usually takes out the previous day's highs or lows. But for New York Open, the way that I find my draws on liquidity is I look at the 15-minute and the 1 hour time frame, and I look for just fair value gaps and which fair value gaps are getting respected and which fair value gaps are being disrespected. Yesterday's example, on the 1 hour time frame, I marked out this hourly inverse because this fair value gap to the upside ran through, and so I expected from that to at least take this low, which we did, but I also expected to take the previous daily lows, which we got very close, but we didn't take them, and then ended up coming all the way back up to the upside. So if in this example, if we had come down and this candle wasn't here, and we just came to the halfway point of this fair value gap and bounced, I would probably expect us to be drawing more towards the previous day's highs and the previous day's lows, because the hourly time frame and the fair value gaps before the market opens always seem to give me a pretty clear direction, at least for like the next couple of hours. I also use the 15-minute, so if there's nothing clear on the 1 hour, I'll use the 15-minute as well. The 15-minute is a bit choppier. You can get a bit more confused with this, but like same thing here. When you see this fair value gap get inversed, let me clear up my chart. When you see this fair value gap get inversed here on this candle, you can probably expect us to at least take these lows, and these lows, which we didn't. That's just unlucky in my opinion, but inversions of higher time frame fair value gaps seem to give a very good draw on liquidity in my opinion. And the higher the time frame you go, the stronger those confluences are going to be. But like here, for example, this is during the Asian session. So, actually this was New York PM, but this inverse here on this candle, I'm expecting right now for us to probably take this low, and that would also be likely taking the previous day's low down there. But on the 15-minute, there's a lot more chop. It's a lot more confusing, but you can still see that 15-minute inverse right there, which ended up taking out that internal low and coming close. Well, not really, but I think we'll probably be taking this out. There's also LR allowed down here. So all of this trend line liquidity, in my opinion, is probably going to get ran. But yeah, that's sort of all I do. I just look for fair value gaps, and are they being respected towards the previous day's lows or highs, or are they being disrespected towards the previous day's highs and lows? That's really all I do, because in my opinion, bias is something that you just need to keep as simple as possible, and it's also really hard to make that mechanical and make that, like, you know, it's sort of, you just have to look at it in the moment and just sort of have a think about it and make a decision. But that's why it's also so hard to actually learn how to find your daily bias or your draws on liquidity. I know this isn't really, it's not the most orthodox way. I know that that's not the way that most people teach you how to find your daily bias, but that's what works for me, and so that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. Alright, so we're on FX replay, and we'll just back test a couple days. So we'll go to 8:30 a.m. New York time, and first thing I'll do is I'll just look for, on the hourly time frame, are we respecting fair value gaps or are we disrespecting fair value gaps? This one, there's not really anything clear on the hourly time frame. This fair value gap, I think, will, like, in time, we'll see whether we're respecting this or disrespecting this. This is only 8:30, so by 9:30, if we've inversed this, I'll be expecting these highs, maybe these highs. If we reject it, I'll probably be expecting these lows, maybe these lows. So we'll see what happens. I'll just jump an entire hour. Okay, so we inverse that. I'm expecting these highs and these highs to be taken. Okay, so we took them. There was a lot of downside movement in here. You possibly would have gotten stopped out on the lower time frame trying to look for entries in here, potentially. But this also could have been a good manipulation leg to look for entries back to the upside. I also think we're going to take this high. And we took that high. Go to the next day. Same thing, I'm just looking for, on the hourly time frame, are we respecting bullish PD arrays? Are we disrespecting? So there's not really anything super clear. Like, this is a fair value gap, but that's like a really small one. I wouldn't really consider that a whole lot. So in this moment, I'd probably drop down to the 15-minute. There's not really anything on the 15-minute either. Okay. This is honestly really hard to find a bias for, because we're at all-time highs. Maybe the 5-minute. Man, this is chop work. I do not like this. So we disrespected this fair value gap. So in this case, I'd be expecting this low, also this low. But this is on the 5-minute, so this is like a really short time frame sort of draw. I wouldn't even really call this bias at all, but we took out both. We did also inverse that one. See, this is too low now for me to probably want to be getting into anything, but I do think we'll probably take this low down here. So we took that low. Yeah, you can sort of see it's a pretty good way of determining your bias, just looking at fair value gaps on the 15 and the 1 hour, and using those sort of as a way to find your draw on liquidity. I know this wasn't a very long video or I don't know if it was very structured, but I just wanted to go over sort of how I do it. And yeah, I mean, give this a back test for yourself. Have a look at the charts, see if you can see this working for you. Don't implement it just by taking my word for it, but that's how I do it, and it seems to work pretty well for me. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. See you later.